Ever pictured a samurai noble warrior master swordsman living by a strict code of honor? Think again. Today we're slicing through centuries of romanticized history to reveal the truth. Most samurai were less legendary warrior and more underpaid government employee. Get ready to have your historical perceptions shattered. What's up, history lovers? Today we dive into one of history's biggest warrior myths. The image is iconic. A stoic samurai, katana gleaming, ready for battle. Hollywood, anime, and even some history books paint them as Japan's elite fighting force, paragons of discipline and martial prowess. But what if I told you that for most of their existence, the average samurai was probably more concerned with filing reports than fighting foes? Yes, you heard that right. For centuries, the majority of samurai were essentially middle managers, accountants, and bureaucrats. They just happened to carry really cool swords. It's time to debunk the biggest warrior myth in Japanese history. To truly understand the samurai, we need to look beyond the battlefield. Feudal Japan had a rigid class system, with the samurai firmly established as a distinct social class. They weren't a tiny, exclusive club of super soldiers. In fact, the samurai class comprised a significant portion of the population, around 5 to 10%. That's millions of people over several centuries. You can't have millions of elite warriors. That's just a lot of people with a job, often a very boring one. Imagine if 10% of modern America were Navy SEALs. It just doesn't compute. Now let's zoom in on the Edo period, from 1603 to 1868. This was a whopping 265 years of relative peace and stability under the Tokugawa shogunate. Japan was unified, and major wars were largely a thing of the past. So what did a warrior class do during nearly 3 centuries of peace? They did paperwork, lots and lots of paperwork. Their swords became more of a fashion accessory than a weapon. During this long era of peace, samurai transitioned into vital administrative roles. Their daily tasks were surprisingly mundane, yet crucial for governing the nation. Forget epic battles, think epic bureaucracy. Their jobs included tax collection, which was basically the IRS with a sharper edge. They were also meticulous record keepers, managing vast archives of government documents. Many served as middle managers, overseeing projects and reporting to higher-ups. Some even acted as local police, maintaining order and investigating crimes. Notice what's conspicuously absent from that list: fighting. Most Edo period samurai never drew their sword in anger. They were office workers, plain and simple, just with a much cooler uniform. Here's where the myth truly crumbles. Most samurai were surprisingly poor. They were paid in rice, a stipend called kokudaka, measured in koku. While it sounds grand, lower-ranking samurai, the vast majority, received barely enough to feed their families. A typical low-ranking samurai might get 50 to 100 koku annually. This had to cover food, housing, expensive ceremonial obligations, and the upkeep of their weapons and armor. Many were constantly in debt, often to merchants who, despite being lower class, actually had money. The irony was palpable. To make ends meet, many noble warriors took on side jobs. They made umbrellas, crafted toothpicks, or engaged in other handicrafts. Imagine a proud samurai, after a long day of tax collecting, secretly making umbrellas by candlelight to pay off his debts. It's a far cry from the heroic image. Surely they kept their combat skills sharp, right? Well, some did, especially the wealthy few with ample time and resources. But martial training was incredibly expensive. Dojo fees, equipment, and time away from their government duties were luxuries most couldn't afford. By the late Edo period, many samurai had never seriously trained with a sword. They wore one, as it was legally required and a symbol of their status, but it was rarely used for anything more dangerous than perhaps cutting a stubborn vegetable. The sword had become a badge of rank, not a weapon of war. And what about Bushido, the legendary samurai code of honor? Here's a shocker. The Bushido we know today was largely created after the samurai class was abolished. In the Meiji era, 1868-1912, Japanese nationalists romanticized samurai history, crafting the way of the warrior as a unified code. Real Edo period samurai didn't follow a single universal Bushido. Different clans had different values, and individual samurai varied wildly. Some were honorable, some corrupt, some dedicated, some lazy. They were people, government employees, with the same range of human flaws and virtues you'd find in any bureaucracy. The idea of all samurai living by a strict honor code is as accurate as saying all modern government workers are paragons of integrity. Some are, many aren't, most are just trying to get through the day. So, if most samurai were bureaucrats, why do we only see them as fierce warriors? The answer is simple: good stories sell. There were warrior samurai, especially during the chaotic Sengoku period, 1467–1615, Japan's Warring States era. These were the samurai of epic battles and heroic deeds, the ones we see in movies. But that period lasted only 150 years, followed by 265 years of peace. Which makes for a better movie, thrilling sword fights or tedious paperwork? Hollywood and anime chose sword fights, and history books often romanticized the warrior era. The centuries of samurai accountants, largely ignored because middle manager collecting taxes just doesn't have the same cinematic appeal. Being a samurai wasn't just about honor and discipline. It came with serious restrictions. You couldn't change jobs. Born a samurai, you died a samurai. You couldn't quit to become a merchant even if they were richer. You had to maintain appearances, even if you were broke, which was incredibly expensive. You couldn't marry outside your class, even if a merchant's daughter offered a comfortable life. You were bound by obligations to your lord, dropping everything at his command. You had high social status but virtually no economic freedom. It was a gilded cage, a trap of prestige where you were technically elite, but often financially struggling and creatively stifled. The Meiji Restoration in 1868 brought rapid modernization to Japan. The new government wanted a Western-style military and bureaucracy, which meant the samurai class had to go. In 1876, the Heitere Edict banned samurai from wearing swords in public, a devastating blow to their identity. Soon after, their stipends were abolished, leaving many samurai destitute. They were told to find new jobs to become regular citizens. Imagine your family's legacy, spanning generations, suddenly declared obsolete. Some adapted, becoming businessmen or teachers. Others rebelled, like in the Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, where samurai with swords faced a modern conscript army with rifles. They lost, tragically. The samurai era ended not with a glorious last stand, but with the harsh reality of obsolescence. So why do we remember samurai as noble warriors instead of government bureaucrats? Because that's the story we want to believe. After their abolition, Japan romanticized them to foster nationalism and pride. Post-WW2, the West discovered them through Kurosawa films, falling in love with the warrior image. We embraced the honor code, the discipline, the aesthetic, and we conveniently ignored the reality that for most of their history, samurai were government employees struggling to pay bills, making umbrellas on the side. Because noble warrior living by honor code is a far more compelling narrative than middle manager collecting taxes. Here's a fun thought experiment. Who are the modern equivalents of most samurai? Not special forces, not martial artists. They're more like government bureaucrats. Think IRS agents, DMV workers, city administrators, or even police officers doing paperwork. They're people doing necessary, often unglamorous government work. Some are dedicated, some are just getting by. They're often underpaid, required to maintain certain standards, and can't easily change careers. That's what most samurai were, people with government jobs, not legendary warriors. What do we take away from learning that samurai were mostly poor bureaucrats? First, romanticization often erases reality. Every culture romanticizes its past, focusing on the dramatic bits and ignoring the mundane. Second, class systems trap everyone, even the elite. Samurai had status but little freedom or wealth. Third, most history is boring. War makes for exciting stories, but the centuries between conflicts are where most of life happens. We remember the dramatic 10% and forget the 90% doing paperwork. Finally, people are people. Samurai weren't superhuman. They worried about money, had family drama, and probably complained about their bosses. Recognizing historical figures as real, flawed humans makes history far more relatable and interesting. So, for every samurai who died gloriously in battle, there were thousands who spent their lives collecting taxes, filing paperwork, making umbrellas to pay off debts, and never using their sword for anything more dangerous than cutting vegetables. That's not the story in the movies, nor the anime, nor the myth, but it's the truth. And somehow, knowing that samurai were broke, government workers struggling to make ends meet, makes them more relatable, not less interesting. They weren't just legends. They were people with a job. And sometimes that's a far more fascinating story than the myth. Thanks for watching History's Hot Takes. If you enjoyed this myth-busting journey, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more stories about historical figures who were way more normal than the legends suggest. New videos every week, proving that reality is always more interesting than romanticized history, because nothing says warrior honor quite like spending your life doing bureaucratic paperwork while making umbrellas to pay off debt. See you next time, history lovers.